Hey, good evening. Hope all of you are doing well. Tonight we are learning Maseches Yoma, Daf Nun Ches, and we're starting about a third of the way down on Nun Ches Amud Aleph at the two dots. The Gemara is now quoting from our Mishnah, and our Mishnah that we had previously learned had stated Nasan es Hamali Berekan, that after he did all of the Zrikos, all of the Hazos, the ups and the downs, inside and outside, what he would do is he would stack seemingly he would stack the two blood containers together. Remember, of course, that there were two blood containers, one for the par and one for the shiur. After he did this rikos, the Mishnah says that he poured one collection of liquid into another and then put the two cans one into the other. So here the Gemara is going to start a little bit out of left field, but we'll come back with our Mishnah as an answer to a question, or at least an attempted answer to a question. And here the Gemara says as follows: we're a third of the way down on Ches Amud Aleph. Ba'minei Rami Bar Chama me Rav Chizda. Rami Bar Chama asks Rav Chizda, let's say on a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash, hiniach mizrak besoch mizrak v'kibel boes hadam mahu. What would happen in a case scenario where the person who did the Kabbalah Sadam took two Kabbalah Sadam containers, stacked them inside one another, shechted the animal and collected the blood that way? Is that, asks the Gemara, is that considered a chatzitza? Do we say, Mahu, what is the din? Do we say min b'mino chotzetz, that even though the two containers are identical, made of the same material, that the outer one is a chatzitza to the inner one, min b'mino chotzetz, even two things of the same item can create a chatzitza between the hands of the Kohen Gadol and the kli with which he's collecting the blood from the shechita? Or do we say, is it min b'mino chotzetz o eino chotzetz? And this Gemara it asks a good question and tries to answer from our Mishnah. Amar le, Rav Chizda says back to Rami Bar Chama, Tani Tuha, we already learned this. What did we learn in our Mishnah? Nasan es hamali berekan. We said in our Mishnah that you take the full one and you put it inside the empty one. So what does that show you? That if you were to then do an avoda with one cup stacked inside the other, it's not considered a chatzitza, which is seemingly a great raya from our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, my lab, isn't it the case that our Mishnah means that hoshiv mizrak male lesoch mizrak rekan? Isn't pshat in our Mishnah that you take whatever mixture of blood is left, because we mixed the blood of the par and shiur in kli number one, and then we took kli number one with all of its blood and inserted it into kli number two? So says the Gemara, no, that's not pshat in the Mishnah. Rather, says the Gemara halfway down in Ches Amud Aleph, lo ira mizrak male lesoch mizrak rekan. It doesn't mean that you took the kli and inserted it into another kli. It means as follows: you took the container that had the blood of the par and you merged it into the other container. You consolidated the two bloods into one. So you now have one kli that's full with blood from a par and blood of a shiur, and the other kli is empty. And then what you do is you dump the whole entire full kli of blood into the other kli. That's what the Gemara says. We'll see why in a moment. Says the Gemara, that's not pshat in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says, Satana le Reisha, ira dam hapar, l'soch dam ha'sa'ir. The language of our Mishnah was not that way. The language of our Mishnah said that what we were in fact doing was pouring the blood of the par into the blood of the shiur. It doesn't say you were pouring a full container into a now empty container. Says the Gemara, you're right. The Mishnah doesn't detail that, but it was in fact done kedei le'arev la'arvan yafe to make sure that all of the bloods are mixed up. Remember, we learned a couple of blot ago that the color of the blood of the shiur was chiver. It was a little lighter colored, and the color of the blood of the par was sumak. It was a darker red. And we wanted to make sure that all of the bloods were that it looked exactly the same. It had a consistency in its coloring. This is what people do when they don't have spoons. They take a cup and they pour cup to cup until all of the solutes are mixed into the solvent. So says the Gemara, you want to get an answer to the question about chatzitza, you cannot learn it from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah wasn't really talking about one kli inside another. Our Mishnah was talking about something else. So the Gemara tries again. Says the Gemara, Toshma, 2/3 of the way down on Ches Amud Aleph. Let's try again. Here's a unique case. Let's say that a Kohen was doing the avoda, but we know that his avoda is supposed to be barefoot in direct contact with the ground, with the floor of the Beis HaMikdash. Here, he broke the rules. Haya omed al gabe kli. He did his avoda on top of a kli, or al gabe regel chavero pasal. Or if he was standing on top of the leg of one of his friends, then it's pasal. So the leg of one of his friends, that's the same as his leg. That's min b'mino. That's two things that are made of the same thing. And we see that the avoda is puzzle. So what does that show you? That shows you that to Rav Chizda's question, to Rami Bar Chama's question to Rav Chizda, was it Rami Bar Chama? Yeah. Rami Bar Chama had said, hey, what about min b'mino? Is that a problem by chatzitza? So we're saying, yes, it's a problem. What's our proof? That if Kohen number 1 steps with his bare feet on the feet of Kohen number 2, that the avoda is puzzle. Min b'mino is puzzle. It must be that it's usher to do the Kabbalah Saddam. To answer Rami Bar Chama's question, it's usher to do the Kabbalah Saddam when one kli is inserted inside another. It's considered a chatzitza. Says the Gemara, no, that case it's a problem, but you can't bring a raya from that case. Why not? Says the Gemara, shiny regel. Another person's leg is very different. Why? Delo matzi mivatele. Because if you have one kli inside of another, have you ever done this before? You're drinking out of a cup and you realize that there's 2 cups. You didn't know there was 2 cups. They were just stuck together. One was batel to the other one. But what are you going to do? Walk around with this guy and say, okay, ready for the avoda, put your feet out so I can step on them again. The cases are not comparable. The cups fit into each other perfectly. They're the same size. So it's obvious that those can be batel one into the next. But you walking around on someone else's feet, you walk around with little kids when you put them on your feet, when you like hold their hands, they're very little. You want them to dance with you. They put their feet on your feet. Okay, but that's momentary. You don't walk around the Beis HaMikdash like that. So therefore, the Gemara says you cannot bring a raya from here, and there's therefore no good answer to our question. However, says the Gemara, maybe that wasn't his question at all. Ika de Amre, 10 lines from the bottom, Nun Ches Amud Aleph. Ika de Amre, maybe Hachi Bai Mine. Here was really the question that Rami Bar Chama was asking Rav Chizda. Derech Sherus Bekach, O Ein Derech Sherus Bekach. Is this considered an appropriate way to be Meshares, to do the Sherus, to do the Avoda, the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Beis HaMikdash, yes or no? So says the Gemara, Tashma, let's see. The Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, the Pasuk reads, as Kol Klei HaShares, Asher Yisharasu Bam Bakodesh. Let's look at the words. Klei, plural, HaShares, of this service in the singular. So says the Gemara, what's the drasha? Shnei kelim, b'sheris achas, and that goes to show you that there, if in fact the second iteration of the question is correct, just whether or not it's appropriate, not a question of chatzitza. This question assumes that there's no problem, that there's no shaila of chatzitza. Assuming there's no shaila of chatzitza, is it appropriate al sherus? Are you doing the wrong thing? Says the Gemara, no problem at all. The pasuk even indicates as much that you could stack the kelim together and do the Kabbalah Saddam. All is well. Next question. Ba'amine Rami Bar Chama, Meir of Chizda. They're sitting in the base medrash, they're talking and learning. Third question, really the second question, but we don't know which of the first 2 questions he really asked. But here was the next question. Hiniach sieve b'soch hamizrak. You take a sieve and you put it inside of a kli. V'kibel boas adam mahu. So what's a sieve? So take a look at Rashi. Rashi is halfway down in the Rashi's Dibur HaMaschil sieve. Hagadel saviv hadekel b'nichrach alav saviv kimin lulavin b'gifanim. So there's this particular material. It's a growth that grows around trees. It wraps itself around the tree. And v'hu rach, it's soft. V'sofeg es hadam, and it's absorbent. Okay, so now let's go back in the Gemara. 6 lines from the bottom. What was his question? Hiniach sieve. You took this absorbent material that came from a tree. You put it inside of a container and did Kabbalah Saddam with it. So what's our question? Do we say min b'she'eno mino chotzetz? Right? Now we're not talking about 2 kalim, one that fits inside the other. Now we're talking about a kli, and inside there's another material, a sieve that grows around the dekel tree. Is that acceptable to use? Is that considered a chatzitza as it relates to the blood being in direct contact with the kli? So says the Gemara, do we say min b'she'eno mino chotzetz, that because this is not the same material, therefore it's problematic? Oh, do we say eno chotzetz? Says the Gemara, continuing its question, kevan de mechalchel lo chayit. Do we say that because it's absorbent, therefore it's not apapi that it's min b'she'eno mino? It's not the same material, but because it's a sponge, it's absorbent. So it's kibolo kachpoto. Whatever absorbs can also come out. So if blood goes in, blood will come out the other side. Kevan de mechalchel lo. Since this material is absorbent, therefore it's not a chatzitza, even though it's min b'she'eno mino. Odil maloshna. Or maybe we would say we don't care if it's absorbent. This material doesn't belong here, and it's a chatzitza. So Amar Le says the Gemara Tanina. We already learned this before. Zolev veholech ad shemagia lesfog. That in regards to another case in halacha, where one is collecting water, pouring water for the mechatas, for the para aduma. So the halacha is you can pour even if there's a sponge in there, no problem. Aye, but it has to be in a kli shares, and there's a sponge in there. We don't care. Says the Gemara, that's not a good answer. Shiny, maya, deklishi. Water is not the same as blood. The viscosity is different. Water is super thin. Blood is very thick. Blood congeals very quickly. Water never congeals, ever. It might evaporate, but in the short period of time that we're talking about, blood and water are not the same, and therefore you can't learn from here. Some say no. Here's how we answered this question. Bidam kasher bekometz pasal. No, when the svog, when the sieve, this min b'she'eino mino, this external thing is put inside the kli, that's bidam, that's kasher. With blood, that's fine because blood is absorbent. However, bekometz, when what you are putting inside the kli is flour, even though under certain circumstances in halacha, flour is treated like a liquid under certain circumstances because it's so fine, here is not one of those cases, bekometz pasal. Here we would treat it as a chatzitza. That brings us to a new Mishnah, a perfectly rectangular Gemara on the top of Nun Ches Amud Beis with no tosfos. And we're going to go exactly to the last word on the page of Mir Hashem. Let's get started. The pasuk reads, "V'yotza el hamizbeach asher lifnei Hashem zeh mizbeach hazahav." So what happened? So a little bit of a drawing. We've got here our Beis Hamikdash. Everybody see, right? Got our Beis Hamikdash. Here's the Aron. Here's the Mizbech. This is the Heichal. This is the Ulam. Out there is the Mizbech Hagadol. So here's what we did. Bein Habadim, he did the Ketores. Then he came in and he did the Zrikos Hadam. Then he went out and did the Zrikos Hadam here. We're going to learn a drasha today about that. And then what did he do? Then he went to the Mizbech and put blood on the Mizbech. So that's what this Mishnah is talking about, the details therein, and we will pull up this little drawing again in a little bit. So the Mishnah writes, after the zrikos that were done outside the paroches, but in the heichal, and what did he do? So he, after the zrikos that were against the paroches or near the paroches, remember the story about Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Lazar in Rome. So says the Gemara, he would go to the mizbech hazav. Hischil mechata v'yored. And what he would do, he would begin to smear the blood. Why is he smearing the blood? We've been doing zrikos up until now because the pasuk doesn't say v'hizah. It just says that you should put blood there. So that's what he does. He smears the blood. From which corner does he start? Let's take a look back in here. It says, from which corner does he start? Mikeren mizrachis tzfonis. So this is north, right? And this is east. So he's walking from the paroches. This is where he did the zrikos hadam yesterday toward the paroches. And then he walks, really, it's a machlokas which way he walks. But we're going to discuss that a little bit later. But he walks around to the northeast corner. He passes up the first corner, which should be usher, because ein ma'avirin ala mitzvos. We'll discuss that shortly as well. But here, that's what the Mishnah writes in the name of the Tanakama, and we'll see a dissenting opinion in the Gemara. But in our Mishnah, that's where he does the first smearing of the blood. So mikeren mizrachis tzvonis, he walks around to the far side of the mizbeach hazav, to the northern corner, northeast corner, and he puts blood there, and then he goes around tzvonis ma'aravis. Then he goes around. He goes counterclockwise, right? Because when you're looking, let's say that this is the mizbech. So he walked around to right here. This is going to be the northeast corner. He does the smearing on the corner here. And then he goes to the next corner around. When you're looking, it's moving to the right. This is the appropriate direction. Kolponashata, what is it? Whatever the language is. Kolponashata, kolpinoshata pona, it's yamin, something like that. You always turn right. So this makes sense. And after tzavonis mizrachis, you go ma'aravis, dromis, and dromis mizrachis. And just as an aside, makom shehu maschil bechatas al mizbeach hachitzon, the place with which one would have started on the outer mizbech with a chatos, which is the southeast corner, misham haya gomer al mizbech apnimi. That would have been the last corner that he would have smeared on inside the mizbech. And Rabbi Eliezer Omer, you don't walk around. B'mekomo haya omed umechate. He would stand at the northeast corner. So he'd walk from here. He'd walk around. He'd stand here. Anyone remember the dimension? This is tiny. This mizbech is like an amma by an amma. It's very small. And he doesn't have to even move. He reaches across corner to corner. What?
So there's no ramp.
There was no ramp here. For sure not. This was low to the ground. He would stand on the ground and he would just take all the chronos and he wouldn't even move. So one sheet of the Tanakama says that he would smear on the northeast corner and then wrap around to the northwest corner. And then he'd go down to the southwest and south, all four corners. But according to the other shita, Rabbi Eliezer says, just stand here and be mechate on all of the corners, and everything is going to be fine. That's what he says you should do. On all of the four corners, Rabbi Eliezer continues, the smearing was done down to up, chutz mizu, except for this first corner where he's standing fixed on the northeast corner, where that was done from top to bottom. Good. That's part one of our Mishnah. Part two of our Mishnah. After that, after all the smearing, another set of hazos. He's al taharo shel mizbeach sheva pe'amim. What he would then do is he would sprinkle blood on the taharo shel mizbeach. That's the top of the mizbeach. He would sprinkle blood on there 7 times. And then now what do we do with all the blood that's left? So says the Gemara, then he'd walk out of the Heichal entirely, out of the Ulam, and right there on that western wall, because this is west, right? So when he walks out, he'll greet the western wall of the Mizbeach that's right here, and that is where he would put down they would pour the blood onto the yesod of the Mizbeach there, yesod ma'arav shel Mizbeach hachitzon. And then, as an aside, 7 lines down, nun chesamid beis, v'shel Mizbeach hachitzon, when there was extra blood by the Mizbeach hachitzon, hayashofech hayesod dromi. That was then put on the southern wall when there was extra blood, and that is, there was only a yesod on those 2 sides. There was a yesod on the west side and the southern sides, but not on the other 2 sides. So that's where the blood would be placed. And where did the blood go once it went into these holes by the yesod? Elu ve'elu misarvin ba'ama. All of them would then be blended into the water system. V'yotzin lenachal kidron. The system would kick out all of the blood by nachal kidron. V'nimkaran legannanim. They would sell it to gardeners lezabel in order to fertilize their ground. Umoalin behen. And halachically speaking, if it wasn't purchased properly, one could violate mi'ilah. Fine. The Gemara opens, Tanu Rabbanon, I don't understand. V'yotza el hamizbech. What do you mean v'yotza el hamizbech? V'yotza, exit. He didn't exit anywhere. He was standing right here when this new pasuk kicked in. He had just done the zrikos near the paroches. What does it mean v'yotza? He didn't go out anywhere. He stayed in the same exact room. He walked a couple of feet over to the mizbech and started smearing blood on it. What's v'yotza? So says the Gemara, Ma Talmud Lomar. Amar Reb Nechemya, we needed to make sure that we didn't confuse our case of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur and another case that has a similar set of rules. What is the other case? Spitting all over my Gemara. Says the Gemara, Amar Reb Nechemya, Lefi shemasinu bepar haba al kol hamitzvos. There's a special par that's brought when a Kohen Gadol would do an Avera that had an Isser Kares attached to it. He'd have to bring a special par. Shekohen omer chutz lamizbeach. The Kohen would stand on the far side of the Mizbeach, on the east side of the Mizbeach, umazeh al haparoches b'shashu umazeh, and his sprinkling on the paroches was from afar. It was from the eastern side of the Mizbeach Hazav toward the paroches. That's what he would do. Yachol af zekein. Maybe we should say that that's exactly what the Kohen Gadol should do on Yom Kippur. That when he's doing the sprinkling by the paroches, it's also on the eastern side. Says the Gemara, Talmud Lomar, therefore, v'yotza el hamizbech. We have to make sure we know exactly where we're going. Heichan haya. Where was the Kohen Gadol by Yom Kippur doing the zrikos? The Gemara says, lifnim min hamizbech. From the inside of the mizbech, namely in between the mizbech and the paroches, which is where this gorgeous stick figure picture is drawn. That's brisa number 1. Tanya idach, 1/3 of the way down. Says the Gemara, Lifnei Hashem, Ma Talmud Lomar, by this unique korban, which is referred to as par haba al kol hamitzvos, when a Kohen Gadol does an Isser that brings with it an Isser Kares, he has to bring a special korban. It says Lifnei Hashem. Amar Reb Nechemya, Ma Talmud Lomar. Why does the pasuk say Lifnei Hashem by that korban? Amar Reb Nechemya, Lefi shematzinu bepar b'sar sheyom kippurim. Because we know that by our sugya, by Maseches Yoma, in regards to the par and the seir of Yom Kippur, shekohen omed lifnim min hamizbeach, that we know that the Kohen stands here, and that's where he does the sprinkling from in between the paroches and the mizbeach. So yachal af zekein. We might have thought that this is where the Kohen would stand when he's bringing this special korban called the par haba al kol hamitzvos. Talmud Lomar, mizbeach ketoras hasamim lifnei Hashem asher ba'ol moed mizbeach lifnei Hashem ve'ein Kohen lifnei Hashem. The Kohen does not stand before Hashem. Haketzad omed chutz lemizbeach umazeh. So therefore, where does he stand? He stands over here. So 2 different braysos, inverted in their structure, and we learn from one another to make sure we don't make the mistake of saying that, oh yeah, no, really, when he does the par b'sar shema kippurim, it's the same as that korban of the par haba el kol hamitzvos, and that brings us to the two dots right here, almost halfway down on Nun Ches Amud Beis. Good. Says the Gemara, Hischel machtav yored. What he's going to do is smear the blood downward. Tanu Rabbanan. Hischel machtav yored mehechan haya maschel. Where would he start? So as we saw in our Mishnah, there's a discussion here. Mikeren mizrachis deromis. He would start from, this is a different shita. He would start Mikeren mizrachis deromis from the southeast corner. This is the opposite. So let's just bring this right back in here. From the southeast corner, he'd start from right here. And then says the Gemara, he'd start from there and then wrap around dromis ma'aravis. Dromis ma'aravis. Now he's going clockwise. Now he went to the left. That's the wrong way. We're going to ask a kasha on that in a minute. It's not going to the right like we would have thought. It's going to the left. So this shita is difficult to understand. And then ma'aravis tzfonis and tzfonis mizrachis divri Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva seemingly was going the wrong way. He said start here in the southeast and then wrap around to the left. Why would he say the left? He should be going to the right. That's the shita number one. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer no. Mikaren Mizrachis Tzfonis, like we saw. So obviously he's the author of our Mishnah. You start in the northeast corner, which is over here, and you rotate to the right. And then after Mizrachis Tzfonis, you go to Tzfonis Ma'aravis. You go to your right. And then Ma'aravis Dromis and Dromis Mizrachis. So Mishum Makom Rabbi Yossi Haglili Maschil Sham Hay Rabbi Akiva Posek and Makom Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Akiva Maschil Sham Rabbi Yossi Haglili Posek. So one started here and ended where his friend started, and one started here and ended where his friend started. Just a little quip of the Mishnah of the Gemara to help us remember who says what. The Kuli Alma, however, where are both of their starting points? Both of their starting points are on the far side. One of them is X marks the spot and the other is O. But what did they both have to pass? So Rabbi Akiva says you should go this way. This is going to be Rabbi Akiva. And this is the other shita. Who is the other shita? I already forgot. Rabbi Yossi. So here's the thing. We have a din called Ein Ma'avirin ala mitzvos. So if what you have is that you're walking from here and you have a tzivui in the Torah to do zrikas hadam or to do the machta, to smear the blood, you just passed up, whoever you are, Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Akiva, you passed up these first, why did you pass up these first corners? Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvos. You're not allowed to just skip the opportunity. So says the Gemara, Dekule alma miha, be'ahu keren depaga bereisha lo avid. According to both of them, they agree that the first corner that they passed, they didn't smear. Rabbi Akiva's walking to the south. Why did he skip over the southwest corner? Rabbi Yossi's walking to the north. Why did he skip the northwest corner? Nothing's happening on this western wall. Why? What about Ein Ma'avirin ala mitzvos? So says the Gemara, my taima, answers Shmuel, Amar Shmuel, because we have a pasuk in Chumash. To Amar Kra, v'yatza el hamizbeach. When it gets to the smearing, you first have to fully pass the mizbeach. You got to cross this dotted line. You got to pass this dotted line in order to begin to trigger the mitzvah of the smearing of the blood. So they had to walk all the way past the line. And because this is based on another shita. According to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, it was open over here. So he said the Kohen came out over here and just walked this way. And according to Rabbi Akiva, nope, the opening was at the bottom, at the southern side. So he says you walk this way. So this is connected to a previous machlokas that we saw. Nevertheless, Shmuel over here gives us the explanation that the mitzvah hadn't been triggered yet. It's not ein ma'avirin ala mitzvos. The mitzvah only is triggered. It only kicks in after you pass this north-south line at the eastern side of the Mizbeach HaZahav. Ad denafik mikule Mizbeach, until you pass the entire length, until you pass the eastern wall of the Mizbeach, there is no mitzvah of the smearing of the blood. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, nakiv derech yamin. Why? Remember we said Rabbi Akiva is going the wrong way. Why is Rabbi Akiva going the wrong way? So says the Gemara, maybe they're arguing about the shita of Rami Bar Yecheskel. What's the shita of Rami Bar Yecheskel? Says the Gemara, Rami Bar Yecheskel, that in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, Yam She'asa Shlomo, there was a particular pool or a water basin that was in the Beis HaMikdash that Shlomo built. Omer al Shnei Masar Bakar, and it was built on 12 statues of cows or bulls. Shlosha Ponim Tzfona, 3 were facing up north. Shlosha Ponim Yoma, 3 were facing, west. V'shlosha ponim negba, 3 were south. V'shlosha ponim mizracha. V'hayam aleim milamala v'chol achoreim baisa. Fine, their backsides were all facing each other, and the water was on top. Halamadata, what do we see from here? Which direction did this Mishnah list things? North, followed by west, followed by south, followed by east, which is counterclockwise, which is going right around the Mizbeach. So if that's true, then it must be that Mar Islay de Rami Bar Yechezkel, the Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds that you have to go to the right. That's why when he starts at the northeast corner, he rotates around counterclockwise to the right. Masha'en Kain, 8 lines from the bottom, Umar, and Rabbi Akiva, Leslay de Rami Bar Yechezkel. He says, no, I don't hold of him, so I say you can go the other direction. So Zagdan Gemara, no, lo, that's not right. Everyone agrees that you're supposed to go that way. Here we have a different machlokas between the two of them. What's a machlokas? Mar savar yalfinan panim mi michutz. One shita says that we are allowed to learn something about the inside of the heichal from outside the heichal. Right? We're allowed to learn something from another Mari Makom, which is where Shlomo's water basin was, which is outside. So can we learn from outside of the Kodesh, of the Heichal, into the Heichal? Fine. Maybe all of that's true, but the Gemara is still bothered. But Rabbi Akiva, I'll give it to you. Maybe you hold that you can't learn from outside the Mikdash to inside the Mikdash, from outside the Heichal to inside, maybe. But still, you could have chosen what direction you went in. Even if you don't hold that you can learn from outside the Heichal to inside, but why did you go left? You should have gone right. Even if the rule is 0 in this room, you still should have gone right. Forget about all the other machlokes. What is it? Why did you choose this? So Amar Lach Rabbi Akiva, here is Rabbi's answer. Medina, really what should have happened was that Behahu Karen de Paga Beresha, Behahu Avid Beresha. Really what should have been. Rabbi Akiva is walking out of the southern side. He first encounters the southwest corner of the Mizbech. Really, Medina, Be'ahu Karen de Paga Beresha, really this should have been the first corner. Nebuch, I can't because I didn't pass the threshold of the eastern wall. So I'll go to the threshold of the eastern wall and my first smearing will be on the southeast wall. Be'ahu Avid Beresha. So I'm going to do the one I need to. And then, but after that, I'm going right back to the southwest because it was Ein Ma'avirin. I didn't have a choice. I had to do this because Hashem said so. So I passed over the southwest corner. I did the southeast corner, but really I need to go back to the corner that should have had it first. So therefore I went to the left, and then I just continued in that way. Why is it that we didn't do it this way? Because Mishum Dichsiv v'yatza lamizbech. I couldn't do the southwest corner, says Rabbi Akiva, because the pasuk in Chumash says I'm not allowed to. Denafik mikul lamizbech. The cave on the yad bahu keren, and once he already gave on the southeast keren, and then he moved to the southwest keren. Hadar asilahu keren deichayev lemesa beresha. Once I started here, and I had to, didn't have a choice. Then I had to just flip back to the corner that I went to, and now this is why I'm going clockwise. I'm going to the left, but it's a broken rule. But we have conflicting rules. Do we say that going to the right is better, or do we say that ein ma'avirin al mitzvos is better? So Rabbi Akiva is torn, and he says it has to be that ein ma'avirin conceptually was triggered, not halachically, conceptually. It would have been triggered, but the pasuk says otherwise. But now that I did this, ein ma'avirin al mitzvos, let me go back to the one that I already passed. We'll stop right here. We'll pick up in Hashem tomorrow night with Maseches Yoma Daf Nun Tes. Wishing you all a beautiful night.